Hello and welcome to another edition of Community Forum. My name is Joseph Feaster, and today I have a program with my fellow co-host of Community Forum, Steve Kelley. Now, we have been following the politics on the national and the local level since last year. We did a program during the election or prior to the election in October. We did a program right before the inauguration in January. We did a program looking at what had happened during the first 100 days of the Trump administration sometime in April. And now we're back some 9 months later to make an assessment of where things are. Now, as a starting point, and just metaphorically speaking, in my personal view is that we've had a situation much like what has occurred in the climate. We've had Harvey and Irma type circumstances going on in the administration. And from my point of view, that's what Steve and I want to talk about today. And hopefully we will give you some information and share with you our thoughts on what's happening on the political front, both nationally and locally. So, Steve, it's great to always do this program with you, my friend.
All right. First off, I want to thank you for your time, your opinions, and just making this possible, along with Gina Coe's out in the back, Mike Hammond, Leo McGowan, our cameraman. So, and thank the audience for watching.
Absolutely. I think that's always important to do that type of thanking. And, you know, we've been thoughtfully talking about some of these things, and in preparation for the program, I mean, there's so much that has gone on since January 20th and with regards to the Trump administration. I mean, we can just pick a point, and I just want to begin to list some of the topical areas. Now, again, we won't be able to cover all of them in depth anyway. You know, we've had what I call category White House intrigue. We've had the staff hirings and the terminations. We've had the leaks. We've had the infighting. We've had the battles with Congress. Legislative agenda. We have now both Harvey Relief Fund, Irma Relief Fund, debt ceiling, the funding for the government beginning October 1, tax reform, DACA, which deals with the whole immigration issue, and along with that, other issues that could be tied to some of those in terms of legislative agenda would be the border wall, the whole question of jobs, bringing jobs back to America, the failure to replace or repeal Obamacare. And then there's some people, we have where's Waldo? Well, where's Giuliani and where's Christie? They have been absent since the administration took over. And if we talk about international issues, we have China and North Korea. Those are some major issues. Locally, we have the recall and the selectman candidate. So we'll get to as much as we can in terms, you and I, we go back and forth. Our banter is always good. And so let's talk about, I would like to start with what went on with respect to what I call the White House intrigue. I can honestly say that either as a student of politics or paying attention from Lyndon Johnson forward, I've never seen a situation occur where we focus so much on what's going on during a White House administration. You used to hear smatterings of things going on, or if you had, for instance, on the Kennedy, the Bay of Pigs would strike up, or if you had the situations with civil rights during Lyndon Johnson, or you had with Nixon in terms of the things that went on, you would hear different things that were going on, and just sporadically. But this is daily, constant, is almost like a reality show. And some of the staff hirings and going on that went on in the administration has been, they oftentimes show a picture of the persons who are sitting with the president and the vice president, and they're going Priebus, Bannon, the various White House spokespersons that have come and gone. And now we have General Kelley, who was there trying to do it. We hear the leaks. There's the camps between the Ivanka Trump and his son-in-law and the camps that were going on. What is your sense in terms of that's my observation, my perspectives, Steve. What's your thinking on that particular issue?
So Just local coffee shop. I have breakfast, and there's a waitress, very smart waitress. You know, people think waitresses are just, you know, coffee carriers or something, but they're attracting all these bits of information and trying to pull it together. And,
Sure.
one of my favorite waitresses, she said, you know, this country's in a hot mess. She said, it's a hot mess.
That's making it succinct.
And I agree with her, but I don't think it happened overnight. I think it's that we are in a need for a series of corrective actions. And I think what you're seeing in the White House is a whole bunch of corrective actions. I think what you're seeing in our attentiveness to what's going on is a corrective action. I would hold myself accountable for giving the government too much leeway and letting it run. In other words, like, didn't pay attention. So now the corrective action is, I think, paying attention more to what's going on. And I think that's happening universally. So, and the idea of a hot mess, for instance, this whole thing with Antifa, where they have, it's very cloudy, at least to me and maybe the average person, what they're about. I mean, in one sense, they're saying they want less government intrusion and they want free speech. But in the process of them wanting free speech, they deny others free speech. So the country is a hot mess. We're looking at people that are no longer acting civilly. We also have this divide with CNN and Fox as sort of point persons or point networks for that divide. And I really would like to see us all find a way to point and counterpoint, not turn everything into a fight. It's almost like for men, we got to find our internal woman. Do you know what I mean? To kind of lower it and say, you know, we all as a country have this significant task. And I don't care which country. St. Martin's been ruined, for instance, in the hurricane. They have a huge task. Well, we have a huge task. Self-governance is amazingly complex. And I think that we have a tendency to try and treat it in a partisan way that is not reflective of our best interests. We also have this new, just today, Bernie Sanders, the former presidential candidate and now senator, has been urging for universal health care. And it's turning into another fight. And I'm suggesting, why don't we see, how do we morph it? How do we make things not about a fight, but about a result? And the toning down of rhetoric and the lack of grace, you know, we got to tone down the rhetoric. We got to get rid of this lack of grace. We got to have more grace. You know who's taking a lot of heat right now? Not my favorite candidate at all, Hillary Clinton. But frankly, leave her alone. Okay, she wanted to write a book, let her write her book. Why is the right tearing her apart on a personal level? There's no need. I mean, if you don't like the book, don't buy it, don't read it. It's old news. The news that's today is, how do we fix the hurricanes? How do we fix the racial problems that our country's experiencing? And we're not going to do that by shouting at each other. So that's, when I say it's a hot mess, that's what I mean. So how do you reflect on that?
Well, you know, again, I was listening intently to your characterization of it, and I just have to say there are starting points and sparks that create these things. And certainly for me, and that's why I gave in the opening, I talked about my own understanding of politics and what I've observed. I have to be able to say that in terms of a lot of this discord, if you will, has been stoked by Trump in a way that he felt it was necessary to run for office and win. And as a result of that, that's emboldened a number of groups which want to keep the discourse. So when you have, it's called point counterpoint, is what happens when you throw one rock across the fence, somebody throws two rocks across the fence. And we're seeing that both, this is in my history, in my lifetime, this is the most tumultuous time that I've seen in terms of relationships amongst American citizens that I've ever seen. And I'm speaking of, I was young during the civil rights, the initiation of the civil rights movement, and but even the times before that, what's going on now is very, very troubling in the sense of where we're going as a country, both nationally and internationally. I read about the different hate groups that have increased.
Yes.
Many of which are in Massachusetts, and so I agree with you that there would be a necessity to have the type of dialogue we're talking about. But I see the balkanization of this, that folks are in camps, and if I was to look at it politically, there is, if you will, the Democrats, there's the Republicans, and then there's Trump and the folks that support him. Because I believe, personally, Trump may have run as a Republican, but he's not a Republican.
We agree.
Yes, he's not a Republican. No. So therefore, we have what we've been unable to accomplish historically in terms of political parties. We now have a third party.
Yes.
A third party that has been successful.
Yes, I think
so. Because Trump, good or bad, was able to galvanize the folks who felt disaffected, because that's basically what you're talking about. People felt disaffected, feel like Washington doesn't listen to me. They have policies and procedures that I don't like. No one is going to make the types of changes. And what he did was to tap into that and to be able to amalgamate a number of people in order, electoral college-wise, in order to be successful. Now he has to govern, and that's what we're talking about.
Do you feel disenfranchised? And may I tell you, I do.
Well, listen, yes, the answer for me is I do a lot of lobbying. So, I'm involved in the political process. I go down to Capitol Hill, I'm at the State House, I'm at City Hall. It is a small number of organizations and individuals which really have, and it's usually moneyed interests, that have the ability to influence the outcomes of what goes on in government. I honestly believe that. Now, there are some social issues that will get by, but on the most part, if you ever went down to Congress and you stayed down there for a week and watch the groups just come, there are thousands and thousands of organizations coming in trying to put their concerns of interest forward. No way, no how can government address all of them, because some of them are, diametrically in opposition to each other.
Yeah.
But what I'm just saying is those are the persons who are going forward. If you're not part of that legion of individuals articulating for you, and I've been down there for health centers, I've been down there for schools, education, whatever your stripe might be, you're down there lobbying. That's what happens in Washington. And I've always said that the job of a person who is a politician is to make sure they get reelected. So if that's the basis, that's what they're going to be working towards.
So how do we fix that? So the greater question, I mean, there is this divide that we're seeing, the third party that Trump is representing. And frankly, I think he's representing me. If you're saying that he represents the disaffected, he's representing me. I don't feel that my voice is heard. An example, in the conversation today on NPR, National Public Radio, there was talk about how the government should take over healthcare. And I have news for you. I don't see the government being cost effective. I don't want them in healthcare. And so can we have a discussion about how do we better make use of our resources? So, and I also think that people misunderstand the function of government. I think they have it in a holy place, and it's not holy. In fact, government is simply a business that is in the business of managing the resources of the people. So all of the stakeholders, we together have a piece and ownership of the country, and the government is in the business of managing that. I have a small real estate business. We're in the business of managing our real estate. It's no different. Town government, they're in the business in Stoughton, they're in the business of managing the resources of the people. It's a business. And you can identify business in a great many ways, but particularly about how well the people are doing in it. And I can tell you the people in town government are doing very well. And the people in state government are doing very well. And the people in federal government are doing very well. So how do we make sure that that very well goes to all the people?
Okay, when you say very well, you mean in terms of for their own interests?
Sure.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, so the viewing audience says that, because I didn't want to say I disagree with the promise that they're doing very well in terms of administering our business.
I don't think they're doing a good job administering our business, but they're doing very well for themselves.
And again, I was going to say, with regards to, since we have been looking at this political process for the electoral process on the federal level fairly closely since prior to the election, if I were to give a report card on the Trump administration for the 9 months, he would get a failure because nothing has been able to be put forward. We talked about some of the things, the palace intrigue and all the staffing issues has taken all the attention. There's no legislative agenda that has been able to be implemented. We're almost at the stages right now, and they talk about that there has been an agreement made on funding the government at least through December 31st, because it starts October 1. And so that's what they're saying. We don't know. I can tell you for a fact, because I'm involved with programs that deal with federally, there is nothing going on. The staff, we're paying people in Washington to sit at their desks because there's no decision making being done in the most respects, except for maybe, folks are getting their Social Security checks, folks are getting their Medicaid and Medicare and things of that nature. So from the standpoint of our ability to be able to do that, we don't know what's going to happen in terms of the debt ceiling. We don't know what's going to be happening as far as the Harvey Relief Fund and the Irma Relief Fund. That's being discussed at the present time, and folks may want to play the politics with that by appending things to it as they did with Sandy Hook and also with Katrina. So you're right. We're sitting here, the disenfranchised, we're sitting here watching all this going on like it's a soap opera, like it's a reality show, and all we see is that things aren't getting done, and also our funds are being spent in a particular way, which in many respects we would disagree with.
Yeah, so how do we, could we take on the purpose? We're doing a show. We're both giving up our time as volunteers.
Sure.
How can we make a difference? How can we help to make or initiate or push forward enough change that they listen to us at those kind of levels? As I said, the Antifa method right now is a group of people that are pledging themselves to violence against another group of people who are pledging themselves to apparently hatred. So,
and that's not the answer.
No, that's
not the answer.
We're not going to get anywhere. And I guess the problem is, how do you bring people to the table who don't want to come?
Well, if you and I were able to answer that particular question, we would be categorized as geniuses. I know you have done it, you've talked about it, and you've been very successful in the way that you have established your company and you move forward and you give your time. That's what's laudable. The issue is the majority of the populace do not do that. They don't give the time. They don't want to confront the types of issues. Just look at the voting patterns nationally as well as locally. When I sit there and I say that, for instance, you get 12 or 13% of the people voting. Listen, that's not a process that's strenuous. If people voted, then you have an opportunity to have a conversation, because that's what politicians pay attention to. If they aren't doing their job, we should have the ability, in order to be able to put candidates up who are going to do that. I don't have any problem in one utilizing at least the political process that we have now. Win, lose, or draw. I may not like the outcomes, but as long as you utilize the political process appropriately and you don't have what's being at least bantered around and someone was intruding in our political process, as long as we have a fair process, hey, listen, winner takes all.
So that's a good segue into our town politics. We could just touch over there.
Yes.
So there's some sense that there's a recall underfoot?
Yes.
Is that legitimate process?
It is legitimate because the town charter allows it. Town charter allows it, and if people feel that they've been disaffected and they don't agree with those who were elected, because that's what it is, not appointed position, elected in order to speak for them, to represent them, then they have a right to put forward other candidates and or recall. Whether you agree or not, from a process standpoint, they have every right in which to do it. Now the question will come is, well, where will folks come out on that particular question? And I will also add that no matter which way it goes, it's going to be divisive for the town.
Yeah. So how does this serve the interest? How does it create value for the stakeholders who are the town residents and businesses? Right, there's this little tripod. Remember, I had that little
Sure,
triangle,
absolutely.
which says that there are basically three groups in a town or in a government. One is residents, one is businesses, and one is town employees.
Yes.
So the town employees are in the business of managing the resources for the other two stakeholders. And I have to say, how is it serving the best interests of us to have recalls, to have interruptions of business and of the town's business, and to have additional costs put onto the stakeholders?
Well, see, I don't see it that way. Again, unfortunately, there are oftentimes costs which are associated with you trying to effectuate what you have as a right.
Okay.
And so therefore, and that's why it's built into the charter, because what it says is, if in fact, you can't have a situation whereby there's two ways in order to effectuate at least elected officials. You either vote them out,
Yep.
or in effect, that's what a recall is as well. That's
Yes.
terms of you want to nullify in terms of, or change in terms of the vote.
Sure.
The citizens will have to speak on that whenever that election is held, in order to do that. It's going to create the disruption. Some will say there's disruption and chaos that's going on under the present system. That's why they want to call about a recall. So the question is, do you stay with what you have, or do you try to effectuate the change if you believe that will make for better local government? And that's really the question that people are asked about. And the unfortunate part with local government, we've had so many situations across the cities and towns in this Commonwealth where we've had the situations where, town administrators, town selectmen have gone. It's a constant ebb and flow. And the other thing we have is, once again, Steve, folks aren't even stepping up to participate as candidates. I've oftentimes said there's only 50 people that run this town. It's the same 50 people. If you look at all the lists of who's on the committees, who's doing things, the rest of the folks, we only had 12 to 13% of the people voting. I think the majority of people just don't even care. And that's what we're faced with. And so we don't even have the candidates. Now, there are 3 candidates who have entered the race or who have announced that they want to run for the selectmen. So if the recall goes through, then there are some candidates that are going to run. So maybe they'll get their shot, but that'll depend upon the electorate.
Does it perhaps point to and unveil a greater problem? Perhaps we need a mayoral form of government instead of. One of the things I've always felt is that the selectmen are asked. They willingly go, but they are asked to do a huge amount of work and no pay. And I don't feel it's inappropriate. I think that it sounds good. It appeals to power in people, but I don't think it's an efficient expectation, or I don't think it's appropriate to ask someone to, probably hold down a full-time job. Some people are in retirement when they take the job, but or maybe they have a family. In which case, if they start putting that much time there, then their families are going to suffer. So I just don't. I don't personally agree with the structure of the government right now.
Well, I'll come back to the structure and give my opinion on the structure in a minute, but I couldn't agree with you more, and I've advocated this in private, and this will probably be the first time publicly. I believe that those positions should be paid or stipend positions. When I served on the Board of Appeals in Boston, and first and foremost, we met during the day, so it wasn't an intrusion on it. We met for 4 hours. That's why I can't serve on any of the committees here. One, I can't stay up long enough, but more importantly, I'm not going to go to 11 o'clock at night.
Don't worry about not being able to step. I try to take a nap every day. I confess, I try to take a nap every day.
Well, my thing
when
is,
I hit 60, that was it. It was nap time.
Yeah, well, 5:30 in the morning until so in the evening, I'm not interested in thinking. The mind shuts down a bit in the evening. I'm more tuned in the morning. But so my issue is, I agree that they and some committees of government should receive at least stipends. If you don't have a salary, it should be a stipend. Now, I'm sure that there would be heresy in town meeting. They'd be talking about, no, folks ought to be compensated for that amount of time and amount of mess that these individuals have to take in terms of doing it. So that's one.
Yes.
The second thing is, on the form of government, having sat in the place as an interim town manager, having sat on and sitting on town meeting, I find the process ineffective. So it is so-called representative town meeting. It's the 9 wards the 8 wards, in terms of 21 persons from each ward. If you go to town meeting, there's only 10 people that dominate all of the time.
Right, the discussion.
For at a time when really the decisions have been made, because it's gone through finance committee, it's gone through all the process, it's all been synthesized, and some people just want to hear themselves talk, in my view. So as a result, it's a process where folks don't want to participate. I think, I'm not sure a mayoral one government such as Worcester is, where the mayor is ceremonial, but you have a strong city manager. Randolph went to in effect, theirs is a hybrid of something, I'm not sure, but they have a strong city manager and a city council. I think there is a need for a change in terms of government. I think that that this idea of having the 178 persons making decisions is a throwback to the colonial times and is not a process that worked. I would say 150 of those people have not a word to say at town meeting. And then we go to town meeting for all these many nights, and Adam Dawkins has done a good job in his most recent iteration as the moderator in terms of 4 nights, but even in my sense, it could have been done in 2, except for the few that want to go to the mic every minute to say something. So you're right, we need to look at it, but the only way that that's going to happen is that goes to the electorate. So if you want to go to charter reform and do all of those types of things, you have to start the process. If we believe it, and we have to see whether others will agree with us. In politics, if folks don't agree with you, your position just won't prevail. So you're right, you got to but the point is, I think one has to get involved.
I think you're right, and the other thing is, we have this big problem nationally. We have I don't know about a giant problem in the state, but certainly in the nation we do. One step at a time. The story on the seashore with the starfish and the little boy, and he's throwing them back, and the fisherman says, "Why are you doing that? There's thousands of starfish here." He says, "It doesn't matter what you're doing." And the little boy picks up the starfish. He says, "It matters to this one," as he throws it back in the sea, right? It's a beautiful story, and I think we got to clean up our own house, and then try to extend that outward. I think that. The country's a hot mess. I think the federal government's a hot mess. I'll give you an example. And this is going to get me in so much hot water. So
that's all right, you can handle it.
Yeah. Sorry that I feel this way, but I do. The pay scales are being stretched to the limit. And when the towns start to extend their pay over and above the median income of the people who they are representing, they're going to create the kind of discord that we talked about earlier in the show. I think the federal government needs to come in and say, look, here's how a town should run. You take your median income and you come to a decision that your high-end management should get double the median income. And grades come down off of that. So you're in the business of making sure these people have a good life, but you can't be taking their good life away by having all the people employed by the government making triple and quadruple what the median income is. I think as a matter of process for the entire communities, the entire United States, you should say, here is the income median for your particular town, and you can double it, or if we agree, triple it for high management, whatever it is. So in Stoughton, let's say that it's $35,000, $42,000, whatever it is, median income. Triple it would be $126,000. Top management should get a maximum of $126,000. And then you come down off of that. And if you don't like it, don't work for the town. I mean, let's create value for everybody in our management roles. And so I really think that things are a little out of control now. The kind of costs that are being thrown upon the residents and the businesses by mismanagement, in my view, needs to get like a pullback. And so, I'll probably catch hell for this, but I want you to go up to the average person and say, I'm worth 3 times more than you are.
Well,
I want you to say that. I mean, I want you to say, if you're, let me just finish. So if you're behind a desk, and it doesn't matter where in the town hall, or if you're somewhere else, I want you to say to that average citizen, I'm worth 2 times more than you are. No, if you can't say it, it shouldn't be so. And what's happened, or if you're a teacher, and you're getting 3 times more, or whatever it is that you're getting, maybe, by the way, what I'm saying might increase the wages of some people. Good. But let's not forget that the job of town government is to manage the resources of its stakeholders. And I'm seeing the stakeholders get left behind with all of these things, whether it's pay at the state level, whether it's senators at the federal level, special treatment for health care and health insurance and huge retirements. I fight for my retirement. I've been in business 43 years. I am fighting for my retirement. All right? There's no gifts. There's no guarantees. No, I'm not blaming anybody. I made my choices. But at the same time, there's an expectation that, in my view at least, that any manager has to create value for the stakeholders which it represents. And when that gets thrown to such a degree out of line, you're starting to hurt the people that you represent. And I think what's going to happen is eventually there's going to be private enterprise is going to step in for management of towns like this. And it could take somebody like you with the experience of town manager, and a whole bunch of people pick up somebody that worked in public works, and you put together a team of 10 people, and you go in and you say, I'm going to manage the town for X. And that X is going to include a metric of what part is the median, and what is it that we deserve over and above what the people who are paying us are earning. Because I think that's an honest conversation that's hard to have. If you're asking for triple what someone else is making, you got to justify it. Tell me why are you worth 3 times what the median pay of this community is. And I want to know that. I mean, the MBTA, you see the checks they hand out, and they're bankrupt. And they're supposed to be managing our public transportation, and people going in, if they're making $80,000 a year, maybe what's the formula that would say, the average worker, I doubt it's anywhere near 80, but let's say 45,000. What is the formula that says you're managing our resources, top management gets this multiple, and we grade down from there?
Let me.
That's quite a tirade, isn't it?
Well, no, it's not a tirade at all. It's an opinion, and it's just as valid as any other opinion that one may put forward in trying to determine what compensation should be.
Yeah.
What we're talking, one of the things I'm saying, I want to go back to your original point. Government is a business. So the question is, how do you set metrics? And you as a business owner, you know that you have to look at what is my income and what are my expenses. And you're going to make your determination on what you have the ability to pay your employees based upon that formula and what you want for profit. That's an investment and et cetera. Nonprofits need to do the same thing. The unfortunate part is what we have found, and what you are saying is that government doesn't have that same analysis when it makes those determinations on compensation and how they spend money, because just like right now when we talk about the debt ceiling, we say, oh, okay, we have Harvey and Irma, we didn't plan for it. We want to put in $5 billion. We're just going to print more money and put in $5 billion. Well, you can't do that.
Hell no.
I can't do that.
No.
So when you have that type, and that's the structure that you're talking about has been built in. When you talk about that a congressperson has the ability to have a healthcare policy that'll cover them for the rest of their lives, et cetera. Yeah, I guess I would try to stay in re-election, and I would focus on my re-election as well.
They die.
So what we're saying is, it's the process has moved away from what the founding fathers may have envisioned. Because remember, they used to come, and then they would go back to their farms and be gone. We used to have other states that I know of, their legislatures may meet only 40 days a year. Our legislature meets year-round with staff, et cetera. And the reason why some of this can happen is what we talked about earlier. People aren't participating in the process. If the voting public said, we don't want this, if the town meeting says, I don't care what the finance committee has put forward as a budget, I don't care what the selectmen has put forward as a budget, we're not accepting the budget. Since they say that the town meeting is the all powerful body in this town, if they took the position and said, we're not going to accept it, I don't care what pay formula you did, I understand your union contracts, et cetera, we'll go to court, we'll do whatever that we have to do. If we really want to push back, they will do it. My thing is, what you say is a happy thought, it'll never go through, because the folks who are benefiting from that are never ever going to allow that argument to see the light of day. And so that metric will work, but there's other things to make determinations that you get efficiencies in government, and that's where you have evaluations, all of those types of things that oftentimes we don't do. You don't evaluate folks. Folks may be doing a horrible job. They're able to stay regardless of the job. You know that if you have an employee that's not performing, you may give them an opportunity to get type of assistance, but after a point in time, you're going to say,
they don't last long.
You have to separate from me. That doesn't happen in government. And I see it all across, in all of my travels. I've been in state government, I've been in local government, et cetera. The process for trying to remove employees is bad. My own personal view, the persons who should be paid the most in our society should be teachers, but that's a whole nother conversation. We ask folks to take care of our youth, our young people, and we pay them the paltry amount. Well, that's my own personal viewpoint. How many people would agree with me on that? And if we did, then we would be moving towards making the salary structures for teachers happen. So I think it's participation, but I know that we're coming up on about 20 minutes. And I know we have to let our sponsors be told, because you and I will talk right through the 20 minutes. So why don't we bring up the sponsors?
Sure.
Thank them for all the things they do for this Floor Community Forum and SMAC, and we'll be right back.
Hi, it's Gary LaPierre, and the crew wants to thank Maxie's Delicatessen. That's at 117 Sharon Street in Stoughton. They're 781-341-1662. American Cancer Society, yes, they're looking for volunteers. Drive cancer patients to and from their treatments. 1-800-ACS-6662, or just go to www.cancer.org. Ilse Mark's Food Pantry in St. Anthony's Free Market, 2 Park Avenue in Stoughton. For more information, call Christine Gallagher. That's at 781-341-0611 or 781-341-0549. Meals on Wheels. Just ask for Jessica. You'll find her at 781-344-8882, extension 2. Stoughton Penny Saver. Our business is advertising your business, they tell us. 27 Rose Glen Street, Stoughton, 781-344-4833. Community Forum showtimes in Stoughton. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 p.m., Monday at 8 p.m., Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 28. All comments and suggestions welcome. Contact us at communityforum1@yahoo.com. Samaritans, they're at 41 West Street on the 4th floor in Boston, 02111. Their phone number is 617-536-2460. 24-hour helplines for Samaritans, and the number is 877-870-HOPE. That's 877-870-4673. Samaritans, you can find them at 800-252-TEEN. That's 252-8336. Or find them online at SamaritansHope.org.
So we're almost back, ready to return to the Feaster and Kelley show. But before we do, we're going to go let you know about the Hometown Business Show. It's kind of a new show here at SMAC, and where we try to bring in businesses and let them show their good stuff. Try to, help them along in the tough business world. So that's on Tuesdays at 11, Wednesdays at 5:30, Thursdays at 8, Sundays at 7. It's on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon 28. If you have a business that you'd like to get on air, please give us a call. Let us try to get you up and show the people what you have. And we want to talk to you about a new show. I think Stephanie Patton has it. It's called We Are United. It's on Mondays at 5 p.m., Tuesdays at 9 a.m., Wednesdays 8:30 p.m., Fridays 11 a.m. Again, Comcast 9, Verizon 28. And this is about highlighting things in Stoughton that are great, working with the youth, showing everything that is going on, trying to help Stoughton move forward. And we also have Monday night bingo at my favorite congregation, Ahava Torah Congregation, 1179 Central Street in Stoughton. If you're bored on a Monday night, go down and see that place. It's wonderful. The people there, they have a good brand of bingo there. Doors open at 4:30. Nice people. The games start at 6:30. Go out and take yourself to a good time at Ahava Torah. And we also have Stoughton's own Get Fresh cooking show. New episodes all the time where they try out all new recipes, let you develop your own cooking skills. Monday at 5:30, Wednesday at 8, and Thursday at 9, and Friday at 5 p.m. And lastly, we want to send a special shout out to Johnny Doyle and Sherm over at Sherm's. They've done such a generous and kind job to help our SMAC van stay up and running. It's hard to get that thing out there. We need to get it out in the streets so that we can take people and show what's happening in the streets. And they actually have put forth a great effort and a very generous effort to keep that van running. So thank you, Johnny Doyle. Thank you, Sherms. And now I'm back here with Joe, and we're trying to round out and actually trying to be somehow a little bit effective. Try to let people have maybe we could have a call-in show at some point, Joe.
That would be great. I would like to hear what our viewing audience thinks, and I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
We can have the point-counterpoint with them. I'm sure they don't agree with everything that you and I say. That's for sure.
I bet there's a lot that don't agree with me. But.
Yeah. Well, in terms of I don't think there's all love for me either. But I do want to point out one other thing that's happening in town. We talked about what's happening on the national front in terms of the attitudes that are going on and the discord. But there's a good thing that's happening here in Stoughton, and I want to mention it. There is a group that's put together a diversity committee. And they've been meeting. They're going to be coming out next year with a number of events and activities, and that's starting some of the process of this healing and trying to bring folks together. So that's a starting point, as opposed to some of the things we're talking about where there is the discord, there's the difference, the separateness, the antagonism that's going on. At least here, there's an effort, and I invite folks to get involved with that particular effort as they hear more about it. And there are a few people, I won't name them all here or name any of them here, but right. Look out for what the Diversity Committee will be bringing forth in now and in 2018. But if we come back to it, we can't leave this program without talking about the situation which is occurring around Mueller's Russian investigation. That has topped the news. Last night was reading about some issues involving General Flynn, Mike Flynn, his son, some meetings that took place, etc. I can tell you, my wife and I traveled abroad during the summer. You get this real sense. It's tough being American. You really begin to get this sense that you have a bullseye on your back, because our issues are all over. And when you travel internationally and you listen to BBC, which has a reporting process which is different from the media in our country, you start to get a real sense of how we're being looked at and globally. And that Russian situation, in my view, is that if anything is going to take this administration down, is going to be that particular situation. So that's my view on the Mueller investigation and the Russian interference and all that discussion around that's taken place. Your take?
I just want people to realize, if Trump doesn't do well, we all don't do well. It's much more simple than everybody's making it. Everybody wants to say, oh, here's the bad guy. No, here's the bad guy. They did this, they did that. Stop it. That you're all part of the problem. We need to coalesce around the efforts, the good efforts, not crazy efforts, that the administration can provide us. To me, it's much more simple. I don't know if we can believe all of these polls that are done, but one of the polls that was released this week was that the coverage of the president is 91% negative. If you say 51% negative about me, I can imagine people are going to say, he's no good. If I say 51% negative about you, but 91%, Joe, nobody will like you. And how are you going to be effective in your job if everybody's behind you going, oh, Joe's no good? It's like, come on. Like, here's the job. Let's set metrics. everybody hates metrics. I mean, metrics. What are the ways that we will decide if someone's done a good job? And Trump just had the Democratic leadership in and pulled a deal. Who's more surprised? The Democratic leadership sitting in the White House making the deal, or the president, or the Republicans? I don't know who's more surprised, but let's make the deal and stop having a negative take on it. There's a deal that is being made. This is a wonderful thing. And so I'm frustrated that that people's personal agendas are overtaking our group agenda. That I want to see us create an environment in which the government, which we're paying and entrust the task of managing our resources, can do the job. Because again, it's not government for me, it's business. You're being paid. You guys get paid lots of money to manage our resources. Do a good job. And nothing's more frustrating than seeing Obama's good work taken down. And why are we doing that? If he's done good work, give him his credit and keep the program in place.
I want to run you for president. Because no, and I'm not even saying that jokingly. I'm saying that from the standpoint of your sentiments and how government ought to operate. And my only point is using the same thing in terms of metric. Right now, these 9 months have been a disaster from the standpoint of effective government. And that's what the carping is about, is the fact that nothing is being done. And that's when we talk about I pay attention to this very closely. We don't have most of the positions that need to be hired throughout government have not been assigned. That's why I said to you, we're paying people for the past 9 months to do nothing because they don't have the key people in it to run whatever the president's agenda is. There are a few policy issues that are taking effect, obviously, but on the most part. So if we take the metrics, like I said, the appointments that are taking place in and out in terms of the White House, the legislative agendas. If you're going to be able to do that, politics is all about making a deal. We understand that. They're not being made. I have no idea what the Republican leadership in the House and the Senate really have in mind with respect to any particular issue.
Let me jump on that.
So that's my metric. Nothing's getting done.
All right, so let me jump on that.
Okay.
The structure, like we talked about the structure in Stoughton's government, okay, that perhaps the 5 selectmen, unpaid selectmen, is not working out as well as it might with another form of government. Trump's been in office 9 months. Who set up the system? Did Trump set up the system whereby one partisan group could block people from getting the job done? Did the left do it? Did the right do it? Did the Republicans do it? Yeah. Here, I'm always inside I'm a mess about taking away Trump's Twitter account. On the one hand, he is making people, there's nobody in that administration that doesn't know that he will Twitter if he feels that something needs to be made accountable in some way. There's been a real lack of accountability in government. That's why we have a gazillion dollar deficit, because they think they can operate outside of what we have to operate with, which is you have X amount of dollars. You spend more, you go bankrupt. Okay, but the government, they just keep writing new checks that they don't have to back or back by printing money. Where's the accountability? And the one thing I like about Trump particularly, is his willingness to confront and get some accountability. So, when you say he hasn't done anything in 9 months, how much of that is him and how much of that is the structure of government as it's been created by people who the government has served very well?
Well, in terms of now my answer would be it's him.
Okay.
My answer would be it's him. I think that the issue of, and I look at it from this, we have security protocols. You can't have security protocols on a person who's sitting in their bedroom tweeting. I mean, that's just not how government is found. You can't have decisions being made on international issues as to whether we're going to bomb a country or do whatever just by your own volition. You have to. That's why you have your National Security Council, et cetera. I see it from the standpoint, Trump is rogue. He does, like you said, he does what he wants to do. Yes, he's reaching out to folks in terms of doing that. I'm not saying that since in this new age of how you can communicate with people, Facebook, Twitter, and all of these things, some of the things I don't even want to do or get involved in, tweeting and all of these different things. But the reality is, when you're running a business, you wouldn't be putting out all of your secrets and all of those types of things and making decisions in your organization. You wouldn't do that as a business person. You just wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't get away with it.
That's right.
I'm held accountable.
That's right. And see, what I'm saying is the level of accountability here, you just can't have one person who feels that I can just do all of these types of things, say whatever I want to say, do whatever I want to do, because I'm watching what's going on in the media and reacting to it. For instance, they talked about, since you mentioned the dinner that he had with Pelosi and with Schumer, and supposedly have worked out the deal for the
DACA, I think, was one of the things.
Well, the DACA children, but also in terms of the budget issue. I don't know if they did debt ceiling too. I think those two are tied together in terms of, so you can only fund the government. They did that. Now, of course, the person says, well, why weren't McConnell and Ryan there? So now you have this thing, no matter, like you said, may have something that was worked on. Oh, Trump is, the Breitbart and others are saying he's abandoning the viewpoint. So what you see, no matter what you do, and that's the reason why my attitude is I'm not running for anything but cover. Because no matter what you do, you're going to aggravate somebody in the process, and that's what's happening. Yeah. So no matter what you do, we had a situation where he, did Syria in terms of the bombing. Some folks agreed, others disagreed. We have the China situation. How should, or North Korea even more directly. He did saber rattling in terms of his comments. So do we go in and put in sanctions? Do we bomb? These are discussions usually would go on within the national security and the intelligence community as opposed to tweeting. So I'm just saying.
But I don't think we know, Joe. We don't know what's right and wrong. Yeah. I think that long term tells us that. And I also want to make a point that you state that you think it's Trump. He comes in for 9 months. I say that the system's corrupt and that he's handling himself maybe not great at all, but that he's constrained by it and he's fighting out of it. But if you also say that he's responsible for that, then, and I don't agree with this, but I'll tell you that unemployment is way down, the stock market is way up, then you have to say that's Trump too. And I don't agree with that. I think that the structure that was in place by Obama, or by, not Obama, but his administration, or the structure of the security, that's what has helped to create this stability or new growth. So I think you can't have it both ways. So if you want to say that he's responsible for the mess, then he's also responsible for the high stock market.
He shares in, let me state it this way, that triumvirate shares in the governmental mess that we have. Our form of government in terms of the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the executive branch. They are the ones who do it, and you're absolutely correct. Those ebbs and tides and those flows, politicians take credit for everything that is good and want to shy off on things that are bad.
Yeah.
No. Yes, I read the report, unemployment is down and the stock market is up. May have no direct correlation to anything that's happening at this particular point in time. You and I both know that in terms of the market.
I want to get people to get off of the hard ridges. Like, when I hear these, even on now National Public Radio is allowing it. I don't really approve of that. National Public Radio is supposed to be a place for discourse, and they're leaning. And I want discourse. I want you to say, like, maybe I don't know. I think this is what I think is good. But maybe it's not. Let's have a discussion. And I'll harken back very quickly to my lesson. I taught an effective listening class. And kudos to Liam Lee. He was my student. He taught me how to listen. Imagine that. I mean, I'm supposed to be the teacher. Yeah. And he defined listening. And he said, I can tell you all in the class. He was talking, almost not lecturing, but offering. And he told the class, he said, listening is simple. Liberate yourself from your own thinking.
Yep.
That's what we need to do, not harden our own thinking, which is exactly what's happening, whether it's the left or the right, Antifa, or tonight we have somebody, and I think in California, trying to give a speech, and Antifa's promised to try and break that up, and these young people are also influenced by this, and frankly, they don't. We depend on young people to bring initiatives, bring new ideas, but they also, you can't depend on them to have experience because they don't. So can we soften on both sides?
Well,
you know?
If we talk about the young thing, we won't talk about where the Trump children have been in various levels of what's going on in this country. I know we only have a few moments left, and I know that I knew that you and I would talk it through. And I guess I would just say to listening audience, Steve and I are both committed to what is happening in this country, and like I said, it is great to be an American. I see trouble in our political environment at all levels. Some of the things that we've talked about here, we'll just have to watch and see exactly how they will play out. But right now, I'm a little bit concerned about our process. I don't know whether we will get through the governing on the short term, but we'll have to wait and see, and maybe we'll do a show in a couple of months and we'll have some answers to some of these things that we've talked about. But Steve, why don't you close the program out? And
all right. Well, let me do it by thanking you.
Yes.
Really, for a left, you're a left moderate, and I really like that.
I'm
I want to be
centrist.
Centrist is maybe where we can get to, but it's hard to be that. So I'd start off by thanking you. I'd start off by thanking the audience. Thank you so much for watching. We'd love to hear some ideas. Maybe email the Smack Station and tell us what you're thinking. We could, maybe discussion points. I also want to thank Leo McGowan. He's behind the cameras, volunteering his time, just doing a great job.
And Gina Coe, producer.
Producing in the background also.
And the absent Roy, I have to say that to him. He's always telling us we're absent.
Roy.
The absent Roy Cohen.
We got Dave Young, we got Jeff Pickett, we got Mike Hammond. We have a wonderful crew that allows us to have this opportunity. So let's see if we can all get together and try and heal America instead of make a fight in America.
Sounds like a good plan.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for watching.